Welcome back to another episode of your Digi Hustle News. As always, I'm Wade Teamer. Today we are starting the month off with some major stories from the global crypto landscape. Internet Computer Protocol is now one step closer to bringing DeFi to Bitcoin. LeBron James and Crypto.com have come together to educate the children, ladies and gentlemen, on crypto, blockchain, and financial literacy. At the same time, UNICEF is looking to introduce safeguards for those children to protect them from malicious crypto-related activities. The Bank of Japan is prepping for the launch of its CBDC, but it's facing opposition from within its own ranks. Regulators in Europe are looking to introduce a very interesting policy for digital asset companies. Then, breaking this morning, India has published their bill that legalized digital assets, and they also released details for their scheduled CBDC. Binance has a new target for 2022 in the form of Ukraine, and Jamaica says that their digital dollar will be ready to roll out this year. But that's not all. Tezos' NFT platform has signed a deal with Warner Music Group, and Litecoin's Wimble upgrade is finally here. We'll break down what this means for Litecoin, guys, and then before we get out of here, we're going to revisit a headline from the weekend. Why did the SEC approve this blockchain-based securities exchange? Well, today, that's what we're going to find out. But first, let's jump into these charts. Some people are still questioning whether the bottom is in for Bitcoin. Well, I'm going on record as saying that it definitely is. Looking at these next few charts are going to prove that to you. Starting with my new best friend, the 3-hour chart. I want you guys to notice that price behavior between these bands. We're looking at nearly perfect tops and bottoms, guys. The price action that we have been seeing is displayed beautifully on this time frame, and the daily is absolutely gorgeous as well. Strong momentum dating all the way back to January 23rd. Now, of course, I was waiting for January 25th, but I'm not going to complain about it coming a couple days sooner. Not at all. Now, let's take a look at the RSI, guys. On the 29th, we dipped down just a little bit, slightly, to reach that 37.5 level before bouncing back in the other direction. Around 4 a.m., guys, I noticed that we peaked at about 39,000, which is serving as our daily resistance at about 39,300. The weekly chart doesn't even need to be explained at this point. This setup is prime for a sustained rally, guys. We have bottomed fully. The next level of weekly resistance, 51,000, ladies and gentlemen. And the RSI for the week, let's pull this up here, shows that we have the room to reach that without much resistance. Now, on the monthly, even though it is super early, we have a green candle, which is good. Our current monthly support is sitting at about 36 and a half. Right now, I want to show you the fear and greed index because it's still on the fear side. This means that the smart money is buying right now. Guys, we really couldn't ask for a better start to February. Now, let's get into this news because it is just as exciting. I want to start with this Wonderland situation because it's a very important lesson to be learned here. Wonderland, the project associated with the Time crypto and the same chain that was literally making people rich overnight last year with the insanely high APYs, well, they've officially thrown in the towel, guys. The story goes co founder Danielle Sestagali feels that the Wonderland experiment is officially over due to a divided community outlook. But upon further research, this collapse was well overdue. Last week, Sestagali asked former partner and head of Wonderland's treasury to step down after a series of malicious activities. Furthermore, it was revealed on January 27th that the co founder has a very sketchy past. He used to run a now defunct Canadian exchange. That exchange was also brought down for malicious behavior. Prior to this, he had been shunned from traditional markets for a number of credit fraud offenses. Now, it's a couple things I want to point out here. If you're holding time or involved in this Wonderland experiment, it's time to get out now. Secondly, this is a perfect example of if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I remember when Wonderland rose to popularity and my brother asked me for my honest opinion. His friend was able to turn 80 bucks into $800 over the span of a weekend. Now, I was shocked, confused, and slightly curious. But I remember telling him the same thing that I'm going to tell you right now. In this space, because it's still very young and very susceptible, you have to move with extreme caution before you put a single dollar into any platform. Guys, please make sure you check all the boxes. The price of Wonderland has tanked in January, and this is largely in part due to the fact that liquidity hit the system way too fast. Again, my people, let this story serve as an example of the perils that still do exist in this market. Now that we got that bad part out of the way, let's get to some really inspiring news, guys. Over the weekend, word came out that LeBron James himself is working with crypto.com to educate the youth on blockchain technologies. Now, notice how they are focused on teaching them blockchain and not just crypto. That in and of itself makes this story so strong, guys, because we know where the real value is for this market. It's the blockchains. The new curriculum is going to be used at LeBron's iPromise Academy. The program will serve more than 1,500 students that are currently enrolled at iPromise. Now, another added benefit is that not only will the students benefit from this, but so can their parents. Now, although details of the deal have not been fully disclosed, we do know that this partnership will last for a number of years. Now, my favorite piece of this whole thing is the quote that LeBron gave Crypto Slate. He states that blockchain technology is revolutionizing our economy, sports entertainment, the art world, and how we engage with one another. I want to ensure that communities like the one that I come from are not left behind. Again, I'm a huge fan of this move because his motivations are just like ours to expose this information to the underserved communities that need it the most. Our next story also focuses on the children. UNICEF is calling for safeguards amid, and I quote here, mainstream crypto adoption. I love the way they call it mainstream crypto adoption. This shows me that they see something on the horizon, guys. I'm talking waves of adoption on the mainstream level. In response to this, the latest report on adoption, they can see the possibility of greater financial inclusion on the horizon. With that, safeguards are definitely going to be needed for our children, and they are looking to set them in place. I completely agree with this. Just think about how many charges kids can rack up unknowingly just trying to get to the next level of their favorite video game, or a couple $1,000s worth of furniture from Amazon for whatever reason. Either way, we as adults have to deal with hacks and rug pulls, etc., the effects of which are only lessened by our ability to recoup our losses. But our kids, they don't have the patience or any clue on how to do the same. Now, UNICEF has gathered this information from their report entitled Prospect for Children in 2022. This report examines the impact of global trends for the next generation. Now, this chart actually reveals a whole lot when you really get into it. For starters, they anticipate the adoption of digital currencies to continue all the way to 2025 and beyond. The pandemic they project to be over by 2023, with a K shaped market recovery to follow shortly after. But it's the last three columns that's really got me curious. The convergence of frontier technologies in warfare through 2025, the growth of the digital economy also through 2025, and the globalization of climate policies. This is what the United Nations believes that our children are up against in the years to come. Well, it's good to see some sort of protective measures for the babies. Now, lastly, they also detail a scenario in which governments, large banks, and investment firms work alongside crypto and blockchain firms. This will be the result of pertinent regulation of the digital asset space. And when you look around the rest of the globe, there's a whole lot of it. Starting in Europe, the EU has proposed a digital asset bill that could blow open the boundaries for crypto companies operating in the region. The proposed legislation is being called MiCA, or Markets in Crypto Assets. Now, this framework was originally proposed back in 2020 as part of the European Commission Digital Finance Package. The European Central Bank and the European Data Protection Supervisor will be in charge of greenlighting the proposal. And we could see it ratified as soon as this quarter, guys. That means in the next couple months. If ratified, MiCA could officially start in the summer of 2024, completely changing the European crypto landscape. Because once this is established, it would remove the need to comply with local regulations. You see, the situation in the EU is very fragmented, meaning that in order to do any financial business in the EU, you previously had to have compliance from like 27 different member states. MiCA would grant a universal operating license to crypto companies that would allow them to operate in any European Economic Area country. This license will also allow for business activities outside of the European Union as well. Another very important distinction that MiCA will make is the classification of crypto. Under the proposal, they will recognize four different types of asset classes, and this next part is important, guys, so listen closely. Number one is payment tokens or interbank settlement coins. We are all familiar with those. Number two, asset reference tokens, meaning assets that are backed by another physical asset, fiat, and this is including stable coins. Now, number three, utility tokens. We all know what those are. And lastly, number four, e-money tokens, meaning your commerce-based platforms like Alchemy Pay and AMP. Overall, this new legislation is going to extend blockchain companies in Europe's reach to compete on a global scale. Hearing all of this, it really just makes me think of one main asset, IOTA. IOTA is now going to be able to pierce global markets, which means that some major liquidity is on its way to this EU member blockchain. Spinning the globe a bit, we're going to go over to India. As of this morning, their crypto defining bill has been published. Now, we have been covering this one on the channel for months, guys, so we know why this one is very, very important. Now, the part that everyone else is taking away from the bill is the 30% tax on digital assets. But if you understand market dynamics, you'll know why that number is so high. It really all boils down to the transaction volumes and liquidity. In traditional stock markets, money doesn't move nearly as fast or in the same quantity. In India, the tax on their traditional market assets are 15%. So the added 15% for digital assets makes sense to me. It's twice the liquidity. The full bill is publicly available, but that sucker is like 200 pages thick. But this we already know is that it classifies digital assets based on their utility, much like the European Union's newest proposal. Again, this is what makes this bill coming forth so significant. Now, another thing that came with this was the announcement of their CBDC timeline. This one is interesting. According to the Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, she stated that the digital rupee will most likely be issued by the end of the year and no later than 2023. And it will use blockchain and other technologies. That means DLTs and hash graph, which we know how close of a relationship India has with Hedera hash graph. And now that HBAR tech is public domain, the sky isn't even the limit on this one, guys. India is already a very, very forward thinking nation, and Minister Sita Raman has a global, she's got global popularity for her very forward thinking ideas as well. So this move, it doesn't surprise me at all, especially when we take into account the situation in Japan with their digital yen. There's a bit of a resistance coming from a former official from the Bank of Japan. He feels that the current way the CBDC is arranged, it could actually do more harm than good. Currently, Japan's CBDC is one that fluctuates in value based on demand. This means that it actually behaves more like a typical cryptocurrency in the sense that during a transaction, the value of your funds could be vastly lower than what you initially thought. Now, of course, this is a very good argument. No nation could survive with those kinds of conditions, but here's my rebuttal. The Bank of Japan is a member of the BIS, or Bank for International Settlements, the same BIS that is running Project Helvetica, which is an Asian Pacific digital currency initiative. The former official presented a problem. The reaction will be to fix it because the solution is already written in stone. Lastly, on the subject of CBDCs, a Jamaican CBDC is literally on our doorstep. The Central Bank of Japan says its CBDC will be ready by Q1. So we're talking in the next 60 days. It already has been successfully tested by a private financial institution, and the Bank of Jamaica has announced winners of the best name and tagline and logo for the new currency, guys. So, what we have here is definitely a global movement occurring. I really enjoy seeing nations come together with a central focus, regardless of what some of the underlying conditions may be. I feel that this is still a step in a better direction for humanity. So now let's talk some crypto, starting with a very surprising move from Binance. Story goes that their top priority for 2022 is to get Binance official debit cards to the Ukrainian market, noting that although crypto isn't considered legal tender there, transactions involving crypto is still very much legal. In essence, Binance is looking to capitalize on that with the issuance of crypto-backed debit cards, much like crypto.com and Coinbase. These cards will actually convert crypto into fiat at the point of sale, which will further increase transaction speeds and availability, among other things. I'm really just surprised at the fact that Binance is so active in a region of the world that is very, very tense right now. Further in the story, they also mention that they also have plans to unveil this card in Russia, which has the same rules as Ukraine, where they're not recognized as tender, but crypto transactions are still allowed. Next up, I have two big developments coming from Internet Computer Protocol. We know that Grayscale just placed ICP on their dashboard, but now not only smart contracts and DeFi are coming to Bitcoin, but Ethereum will be cross compatible with ICP, as well as Hubie Global will be in charge of their new global developer competitions for the ICP ecosystem. Now, first, on the integration with Ethereum, this new upgrade will remove the need for cross chain bridges. Simply, ICP will be the bridge between Ethereum and Bitcoin that will allow for ETH assets to move to Bitcoin's blockchain. Now, thanks to ICP, DeFi, NFTs, and swaps, and all of the other functionalities of Ethereum can now be performed on Bitcoin. ICP is slowly turning Bitcoin into the ultimate utility token. While most people are still stuck on its Coinbase debut from last year, they're missing out on the fact that nations of the world are structuring their regulation based on the utility of assets. This is opening the door for Bitcoin as a utility, as a leader of utility, guys. On top of this, with Hubie Global, one of the largest crypto exchanges, supporting their hackathons. This is very important, guys, because usually blockchains have to organize these events for themselves, which of course can incur fees and possibly inhibit the reach of a blockchain if it doesn't have a very strong network. With this move, however, ICP now has the backing of a multi billion-dollar exchange with hundreds of thousands of users, not to mention all of the institutional relationships that Hubie has thanks to its position in the global marketplace. Next up, we're talking Tezos and their ONEoF NFT platform. First, it was the Grammys. Now, Warner Music Group has commissioned them for NFT distribution in a brand new label wide partnership. The collaboration will enable NFT releases from a wide range of artists across WMG's catalog. That includes many of the names that we have been familiar with throughout the years, guys. ONEoF continues to get attention, but the one thing that I notice that keeps popping up when companies talk about the benefits of ONEoF is its eco-friendliness, which of course we know is largely in part because of Tezos being one of the most eco-friendly blockchains. But I want you guys to notice how the green narrative is everywhere and it's becoming a prominent distinction for blockchains. Now, this news comes only days after WMG announced that it would be working with the Sandbox for metaverse solutions. Now, all they need is a digital identity platform, which Tezos has in the form of Tez ID, but of course there are other options as well. Speaking of OG blockchains, Litecoin has finally done it. Wimble is complete. Now, for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, let me tell you what this is going to mean for Litecoin. For years, they have been working on a privacy measure for their blockchain. Essentially, they are looking to add anonymity to transactions that occur on the network. This was needed for a couple of reasons. The biggest would be scalability. Now that Wimble is active, Litecoin transactions can be privatized, meaning that, let's just say, if Amazon or Walmart did actually now want to start using Litecoin as a form of payment, they could do it with total privacy for their customers. Now, this feature goes a bit deeper because another thing that I have been very curious about in relation to CBDCs is the discussion on privacy. Some of them are looking for networks that provide this added level of security. Now, I'm not saying that a nation is going to choose Litecoin for its CBDC, but with this upgrade, if they wanted to, Litecoin is a very viable option. Lastly, we're going to revisit a story that broke out over the weekend. BSTX has received SEC approval for a blockchain powered securities exchange. BSTX is a joint venture between T0 and Boston Options Exchange Digital Markets. With this platform, they look to speed up settlement times or reduce global remittance payments to less than 1%. They are doing this by using blockchain technology. Now, when I looked at their website, it was actually pretty bare. The blockchain in question they describe as being public permissioned blockchain, but doesn't mention any third party contributors. Now, you jump over to their website, they have a listings tab, and it's also very telling, where they explicitly state that products will only be listed here after they receive approval from the SEC. Sources say that BSTX has been in the works for about 2 years now, dating back to 2020. But I am more interested in the role that this exchange will play in the future, especially during a time when the SEC is pretty much going after everybody. And they currently have the largest security case of the decade sitting in their lap. Only time will tell, though, guys, but definitely going to keep my eye on BSTX for very valid reasons. If you found value in this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this information with friends and family. If you're new to crypto, I have links to the most notable exchanges in the description. Using the links below supports the channel and comes with special bonuses for members of our network. For more information on the new economy, check out the playlist related to this episode on the right and our most recent episode on the left. As always, have a great day, have a prosperous day. Most importantly, we making this money. I'll see y'all in the next one.